Welcome to Locals Only, where two class clowns got themselves elected and turned a small town upside down. Hosts Rich Wood and Jared Gray pull back the curtain on local politics, stir the pot on community folklore, address the great assumption epidemic on local social media groups, and serve up a generous portion of laughs. Buckle up, Eagle Mountain. It's going to be a wild ride.
Oh, man, here we go.
Well, we're going to jump into the unknown here. We decided the best way to communicate this information that we're bottled up inside our two brains was to see if maybe we could do a podcast and become a benefit to the people in our communities. So this is episode 1. We're going to be winging it, and you bear with us as we get this figured out. We are by no means professional podcasters, nor are we professional politicians. So this ought to be interesting.
But hey, at least we're going to be able to get on here and show some things and go to all things happening here in Eagle Mountain and be able to talk about what's important, what's going on, and get down and get real, both in events and everything that's going on. So welcome to your go-to all things Eagle Mountain. Should we start with some upcoming events?
Let's hear them.
All right, starting off, I'm going to go with July 12th, Farmers Market. Of course, if you haven't been there, you should. It's awesome. But the farmers market, you got commercial and local gardeners, all kinds of food, handmade, homemade, especially the breads are really, really good. I've bought from every one of those vendors over there, I think. Lots of good stuff, food trucks, booths. Of course, you'll usually see some local politicians over there talking about either re-election or anything that's maybe on the ballot, some ballot initiatives, things like that. So all things at the farmers market. And of course, big thanks to Jen Corrington for putting that together, by the way. Some nonprofits, some youth vendors, tons of vendor booths.
I love the farmers market. I think it's one of the things we do really well in Eagle Mountain. The very first time I ever even went to it was when I ran for city council with you, actually. What was that, like 4 years ago or 6 years ago, whatever that was?
It'd be longer than that. Yeah, it'd be 6 years ago.
Yeah, 6 years ago, I didn't know anything about running for politics. You had a little bit of experience, but hadn't really run yet. And I liked how it was set up where people could kind of come and get their businesses off to its first step. And there's some really great vendors in there. Some of the youth ones are really good too. I remember the last year that I went to, I haven't been to it this year yet. It had really good jams. And I really like the guy that makes the bread.
Salsa.
I cannot think.
And salsa, yeah.
Erlinda Salsa, yeah. That's actually my neighbor. That's a pretty cool story for that one. But yeah, the Eagle Mountain Farmers Market, I think, has grown from maybe just a few booths to we're taking up a good portion of Courtright Park now. So I think that's a good
almost
opportunity.
100 booths, I think Jen said. Yeah, close to 100.
We're up to that many.
89. Yeah, almost 100 booths. Pretty good. So
awesome.
Next event coming up, July 15th is another city council meeting. I hope it's as good as the last one. Boy, that last one on the 1st of July was pretty awesome, no?
Yeah, in fact, I don't think I've ever seen that many people in City Hall. That was a first for me. We filled up the entire chamber and then had to overflow into the lobby, get all the speakers working out there so people could hear. And it was honestly, it was invigorating to me. One of the coolest things I remember, by the way, and I never really said this to you guys, is that I never heard that many people do the Pledge of Allegiance. For me, that was extremely moving to hear. Even though everybody came there with some differences in mind, they wanted to express their support or their, maybe their ideas that were different, or even just object to what was being presented with some of the items. In that moment, everybody was doing the same thing, was pointed in the same direction. That was a pretty moving moment for me, at least. Pretty awesome.
I don't think we had that many people when we talked about chickens, and that was our next best one.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, moving on, we've got the July 18th movie in the park, and of course, awesome fireworks last week. The July 26th Summer Bash and Laser Show from 4 to 10 p.m. Again, food trucks, fun, games, laser shows, music when it gets dark. That's going to be fun.
One thing just to add in there, if you if you're interested in the movie to the parks, they are done at different parks, so that's on the city website to show you where they're held each time they hold those. This particular one on the 18th is going to
Silver
be at
Lake.
the amphitheater in Silver Lake, but they also
And I
hold them
think
at
it's
Nolan Park.
Minecraft, right?
Yeah, Minecraft this time. So
Minecraft at Silver Lake, and that's what we got going on for now. More on the next episode, I'm sure. Also, you want to hit the Saratoga?
Yeah, so we thought it'd be kind of cool to let people know, Saratoga Springs and Eagle Mountain are kind of hip. We're connected at the hip, so we support each other. We exist because of both of our cities. So thought we'd share with you some of the things that they have upcoming. If you want to support their activities as well, July 14th they've got a line dancing with Swing Dance Company, so you can go and learn how to line dance. The July 21st, the Beck Brothers Band and a pop-up car show is going to be held on the northeast corner of the park from 6 to 7. It doesn't say the park, but I'm going to guess that's probably going to be, what is the big park with the pyramid? I can't think what that one's called.
Gal, if you want to ask me, I'd know. That's
yeah, it's over on 4th
Neptune.
North. Neptune, yeah, that's it, Neptune.
Is it Neptune? Yeah,
Patriot
okay.
Park's the other big
Neptune
one, so it's one of the two of
Neptune.
those. Yeah, Patriot Park's right by their new city
Yeah.
hall that's being built, and then Neptune's the other big one. I'm assuming it's that one with it having the stage. So, and then on the 28th of July, Mountaintop Music Institute featuring the Blue Note Big Band and Streetlight Syndicate. So, just some things to look forward to that are happening in both the communities. Details can be found on both of the websites if you want further information, times, etc.
Hey, and just to throw one more out there, speaking of our neighbors, I think we'd be remiss to not mention that the biggest celebration in Cedar Fort happens on the 24th of July. Of course, they got activities all day long, and finishing off with their rodeo there at the Cedar Fort Fairgrounds. If you've never been there, it's pretty fun. They sit in their trucks, and anyway, but Cedar Fort also on the 24th of July. There'll be stuff going on all day long.
Good point. Thanks for sharing that too. I think we can get locked in with some of the things happening in Fairfield as well. We all kind of share the same space. We go to each other's activities and events and try to support each other. So, yeah, I think that wraps us up with our events. So let's jump into our next segment. We're going to Monday morning quarterback our last Eagle Mountain City Council meeting. So this is July 1st.
Oh boy, buckle up.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, there was a lot of people there that had a lot of interest in, particularly with our transportation master plan, and that it was great. It was great to hear their feedback on things. It gave us an opportunity to explain to them what our thinking is. One of the things I was thinking about this, Jared, is maybe helping people understand kind of how things get on the agenda. As I was looking at some of the comments on social media, I think there's a broad misunderstanding of what the procedures are for things to get on an agenda, who puts them there, whether that has favor of elected officials or staff, etc. So I just wanted to take just a brief second and kind of talk through that. So first and foremost,
yeah, of course we know
who has yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, we know the mayor's the one that controls the agenda. So in other words, he's the one that has the final say on what does or doesn't go on an agenda. Sometimes things are brought there by the staff, but the mayor's the one that controls the agenda in a nutshell. Now, there is a loophole for two council members. If something's brought forward that they won't put on and the mayor say blocking it or it's not allowing it to get on or whatever, two council members can get together and write an email essentially. And I don't want to say force it on because I don't see it as a option like that, but it's more about they can have consent to make sure that something gets on the agenda by two council members.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to say it. It's another avenue for the council to put forth something that's a priority for them. One other element too is the staff. Even though the mayor has the control of it, the staff, generally speaking, are the ones who kind of plan out the agenda, and that's usually following what, specifically with land use, what the law requires. So once something has hit a certain threshold, there's a requirement to get it on the next meeting. That's part of it. There are things that they want to propose to the city council and to the citizens for consideration. So anyway, I just wanted to hit a couple of those things because I think coming into this, I realized how many people are like, why is the city council doing this? And I thought, well, we saw it when you saw it. Thursday before city council meeting was when we received the packet. A lot of times that's the first time we see some of these things. So I just thought it would be important for people to understand, like, there's some of these things where that communication happens at the same time that you get it. So we're evaluating at the very same time it's available to the public. So first, let's just hit some of the major things. The very first thing that we did is we talked with our deputy chief, Chief Knutson, about park safety, traffic calming, and kind of the state of safety in Eagle Mountain. What were some of your thoughts from that discussion?
Well, and it's an interesting topic. First of all, I want to point out this is in the work session, so there was no action on this item. This was in the work session as a discussion only. And one thing that I've really prided myself in previous budgets that I feel like I didn't do the best this year because I thought I had set that precedence is making sure that we have enough officers. And so we went through a lot of numbers. A lot of those have to do with call volume, response time. And I'm going to tell you, given the fact that we have grown exponentially, our call volume has gone up. Our response time is still very good. It hasn't changed much. So our officers are doing a great job. But I feel like we missed the mark a little bit this year on the number of new officers based on growth. So that's one of the things that we really delved into. And of course, you can see the record. You can see the recording of that whole conversation. But I think we need to add at least one more officer in this budget cycle and maybe two more mid-year like we did a few years ago. That's just my opinion. That's not even on the table right now. Obviously, there's budget constraints with everything. But for me, I think we need to bolster we've got Walmart coming online here in a couple of weeks, some more commercial plan that we're going to get into here in a minute. But with those type of uses, the commercial uses obviously puts another strain on our officers. So I do believe that that's one of the takeaways that I got.
I was just going to say, when you were talking about the number of officers, one of the things I guess we kind of learned from that discussion was we think that we want to be about one officer for every 1,750 residents, which looks like about 45 officers right now. And we are sitting at 34 officers, and so we're behind in the service that we want to provide, not in safety per se, because I think that we have got that part covered, but it doesn't allow us to do the robust traffic measures that we'd like to do, and it certainly doesn't give us the ability to do some of the community outreach things where we have the opportunity to kind of be more present in the specific neighborhoods of this city. So it was a good conversation. I appreciate Chief Knutson putting together that and sharing with us the statistics for that. It can be found on our website. I believe that they actually put that, the Eagle Mountain City website, they put that recording on there. And of course, that's always available from the full amount of the recording, but they broke that one out so you could listen to that discussion. One of the things that I appreciated that we talked about was traffic calming. So,
Yep.
What's your understanding of what that is, Jared, and things that you're for and against, and then I'll kind of drop in on that too.
Well, and I want to, before we move off the numbers things real quick, just a little highlight there. Remember that we do have the SROs, that's the school resource officers, that in the summertime kind of filter in and help with the activities and kids that, aren't in school. Now they're out on the streets and whatnot. But at the same token, why I'm concerned about those numbers is we also had an incident here in town, unfortunate incident a week or so ago, where some officers are on administrative leave. So not only are we shorthanded, then you put somebody on administrative leave, and it really puts the crunch on the guys that are still left standing. So we definitely need to talk about bolstering that. But to get onto the traffic calming measures, we found that some of our major streets, which we'll talk a ton about throughout these podcasts, I'm sure every episode almost, that our streets are packed. And so then people are finding side streets and city streets and neighborhood streets to find bypasses, and it's putting a strain on those streets, but then safety measures. So, of course, speed bumps are always a dirty word in the streets department for lots of different reasons. And, of course, I always bring up safety in that a speed bump can slow down your regular traffic, but it can also slow down your response time on emergency vehicles. So you kind of have to have a little balance there. But I really like the raised tabletop, and I think this is something that you and I agree on. Some of those tabletop crosswalks, and we can use stop signs, because a cop car can run stop signs, but maybe more of them, and different calming measures. Of course, striping is an easy one. Studies show that striping actually it slows traffic down by making this perception of a more narrow street. So that's something where I'd want to start, because you still have the safety of a larger street, but the idea of maybe slowing the traffic down.
Yeah, I think that balance of what it costs and what's effective, and more or less what's going to deter bad behavior. I think that's the balance that we are always trying to look at. And I think it's safe to say that we all look at the safe option first. What's the safest way to deal with this? Is that something that we can do in more, surgical areas instead of placing them everywhere, and then utilize some of these more cost-effective options in broader areas? But I agree with you that the raised crosswalk, or the speed table as it's called, is attractive to me in some of these areas, specifically where we're concerned about cars and pedestrians. Around schools would be some of those major areas that would be concerning. There's also, we didn't talk about rumble strips, but they can literally put rumble strips on the streets too. I don't think that's great inside a neighborhood per se, because that could be pretty loud, especially at night. Mm-hmm. And we probably don't have any kids that think that would be funny to rip through those, in the middle of the night, just to rumble them, right? So we got to be careful, that kind of thing.
Well, and you got to remember, I live in an area where we don't have sidewalks and more narrow streets. And same with, there's a lot of areas in our city that are in that situation. So those, even just striping and some of that will go a long way. So more conversation will come, but I'm sure that these are things that we need to address and at least keep on in front of us, right?
Yeah. Let's move on to that next item on the subject we were in the work session on.
So the next thing is the staff proposed affordable housing, which I love talking about affordable housing, by the way. For me, I've some people out campaigning. I'm running for mayor, and we'll see how that shakes out. I'm happy to serve on the planning, or stay right on the council and keep the progress moving. But the affordable housing plan that I've kind of massaged and came up with, I think you've heard it. I've been quiet about it in public sector. So if you want to hear it, you're going to have to invite me out, and I'm going to come tell you about my housing plan. It's sort of getting out there, but I love the affordable housing, and I've actually got an idea on how to make this work.
Yeah, affordable housing is used in a couple of ways. I think not just, I don't think it's specific to Utah, but it depends on who's saying it, right? If it's a person who wants to buy a house, it's what they can afford, right? Based on what their limits are for the lender for them. There's affordable housing that builders, that they, based on their data, they're looking at a range of what they think is an affordable price. And that's usually a range, and that's going to be based on what their biggest buyers are, right? You're probably also going to have affordable housing from the perspective of the lawmakers, right? That are looking at it as, we need to have entry-level housing that can be used for people who are looking for a place to live. And that can have a lot of different, configurations to it. If we're talking about home ownership, that's a different conversation than rentals. Our rentals are kind of a temporary solution, hopefully. I think the idea for every, particularly here in Eagle Mountain, we're looking to help people into home ownership. We're not looking to try to keep that cycle of rentals. We want people to be able to build their own personal wealth. That helps tremendously with other parts of their lives. So I think we're very aware of those things. So we're careful about how we want to approve things to be built in Eagle Mountain that may not support that home ownership, and to give them the opportunity to be able to have a house that they can grow into. Not to say that you can't have a starter home, because you can. We just don't think that every unit in Eagle Mountain ought to be a starter home either.
No, and look, I think you and I have had this conversation a bunch of times. I heard it on the Doug Wright show a couple of years ago. Shout out to Doug Wright, by the way. But talking about wealth and creation of wealth and where how it ties into home ownership, he said back then the average wealth or the average I don't want to call it wealth, but net worth. That's what he said. Sorry, the average net worth of an individual who's a renter. You and I have had this conversation. You remember what that was?
Oh,
It's
for a renter, it
5,000.
was like a couple $1,000 is all it was, right?
Yeah, $5,000. That's the average. That means your savings account, your paycheck, maybe a little equity in a car. That's the average net worth of a person who's living in a rental situation. That's what they're worth. The average net worth of an individual who owns a home. So we're talking about creating wealth and establishing home ownership. But the average wealth of someone who owns their home, $250,000. That's the average. It's not everybody, but that's huge. And the only difference in the personal wealth is whether or not you owned a home. So I think our goal as legislators, especially on a city council, is how can we help people get out of rentals and not just get out, but how can we help them get into something that's affordable that can start creating that wealth for a better future, a brighter future for their children and for themselves as they get into retirement. So I think that's our goal as we start talking about this affordable housing initiative is how can we help people get into home ownership?
Yeah, and I want to make sure we're kind of sensitive to this subject too, because there needs to be a phase of life of of how you own a home or you rent a home for everybody, because it's different. Like incomes are different, circumstances are different, economic circumstances are different. There's got to be a place for kids to move to when they move out of mom and dad's house. That configuration, maybe that got redrawn a little bit when the market crashed and uh, prices of everything came down, and maybe we redrew some of those lines, and those expectations need to be redrawn. But we do want them to be able to have a place to kind of get out on their own, become independent until they start to have an income that supports home ownership, because it's not just about the mortgage, right? You have all those other expenses that are attached to that as well. But there's also going to be points in your life where you don't want to have so much house to take care of. Maybe after the kids are gone, or maybe you're single, or maybe there's just two of you, and you don't want to have a lot of house to take care of and heat and all those kinds of things. You just want something that fits kind of the size of your household, and then be able to have maybe a little bit of space between you and the neighbor. But there's also a number of people that are okay with sharing walls and ceilings, and want to be in a location that's more urban. And some of those things are available in other cities. That's not really, I would say for me personally, is not something I'm searching for to try to urbanize this valley. And so when we have some of these things that come forward to us, like we did on Tuesday, I'm always thinking about that. What does this bring into our city? What's the future of that going to look like? What's the lifespan of some of these quote unquote affordable units? Are we creating an area that is going to thrive, that is going to have a great sense of community, or are we creating something that has a very short lifespan and will be blighted over a short period of time? So I'm careful about some of those things. So I think what was presented to us, I think we kind of talked about some of those items there, and ultimately we decided that it wasn't a strategy that we were looking to add to our current strategies. So
Yeah, definitely something that we need to tackle. But so far, the particular plan that was brought before us, we're still looking for a little bit more refinement on that. We both believe that home ownership is the key and that we've got to work towards that, but not that particular. And again, just a discussion item. The way that one was, it reflects a lot of what my plan is, but there's a few more things that we need to integrate into there to make it actually doable. And it pertains to zoning and some of those kind of things. My plan does, and I think we can refine it. So agreed that we kind of the direction that discussion went was close, but not quite. And I think we'll see it again. So on that note, if you're good, this is when we get into the meat and potatoes of the meeting. Those were discussion
yeah,
items. And I think this next one was significant. And I'm going to let you start on this one, but the discussion about our transportation master plan, boy, that's what the people, and there was a lot of people there for other issues, but that issue alone had, man, probably 70, 80 people, right? That came out to review that.
Well,
So
is
tell us
there
about
is
the
there
master
a
plan
subject that people don't that they talk about less than traffic, right? I mean, all of us feel
roads,
that.
man.
We
Here it
all sit
is.
and look at the ant trails that coming in and out of the city all the time, and man, we feel the pain. We sit in these meetings not just with our own council, but with neighboring councils. That's something that we kind of implemented starting in 2024, and have been meeting regionally about these things to build some alliances and to build some, I guess, a thought process between cities where we could support each other and use that support in gaining funding for some of these regional projects. So when you do a master transportation plan, it's something that's shared not just with our own citizens, but it's something that impacts the neighboring cities and towns around us. Their own master transportation plans, they're looking to make sure that they match up with surrounding cities as well. And then all of those are submitted to the funding sources. For us, Mountain Land Association of Governments is one of those regional funding source for us, and then also UDOT, obviously, for their future plans 2040 and 2050. So it was a big deal, and it was good to see a lot of people there. I thoroughly enjoyed having so many people in there interested in what it was. I mean, there was obviously people that were concerned about certain road changes that might come into their neighborhood or connections that might impact their way of life. And I think that's a normal response for all of us. We've become pretty accustomed in some of our areas to a certain way of life. And it was good for me to see people that want to protect that way of life. I think that rang out loud and clear to me, that we have people who still share the same vision that I do. I feel like that I've heard from you, Jared, and other council members, Brett Wright specifically, that are looking to do something different with this valley, with Eagle Mountain, than what other cities are doing. In so doing, we don't want to push a lot of traffic through certain areas of the city that would absolutely change its use. So it was great to have people come in and talk about those things. And I think that they found that we had kind of those mindsets also, and we hadn't really had a chance to give the instruction or to direct even our staff and our engineering staff of what we wanted. They brought our previous master transportation plan, and by the way, they did a great job of showing what those roads were, and they did logical connections to have some discussions about. And I think that enabled us to have some really good discussions about, yeah, there's a logical connection there, but at what cost?
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you for a couple of things. Number one, developments like what you're saying that we need to protect and that we're watching out for in any part of the city, whatever that is. A lot of they're not building these kind of subdivisions anymore. The developers won't bring that kind of development in these areas. So we either protect them where they're at, or they're going to get pushed into, county and outskirting areas. So that's one of the reasons why those protections are so important to us. But again, and this is interesting because, you and I have talked about starting this podcast, and I'm looking at this going, we're going to take a lot of time just getting through the agenda on this first episode. We've talked about if we're going to do this every other week or every week. I think we can take one of these items like this one and just get a deeper dive, because we talk about Mid-Valley Road. We can talk about the money that the state's already allocated, and that could be a whole episode. But to get through the whole agenda, we're just kind of hitting the highlights. So, maybe we get a little deeper into roads as we go. But there's some key roads, I think, that we'd be remiss not to talk about, and that were definitely brought up. What was it, 119, right? Was the other
128 and
47,
19.
Is that right?
128 connection,
and off top.
Road 19, and then 46 was a connection between Eagle Mountain and Saratoga Springs off Inverness.
Yeah, there's a lot of roads over there, and keeping the numbers straight, right, off the top of my head. But, I think we can dive into that in another episode if you want. And obviously, those off-week ones will have a little bit different agenda. So
I think that gives us maybe a chance to even,
just in roads in general, right?
Yeah, we could put the map up there and take a look at what's on there. I actually had a good meeting with our road engineer today, in listening to David kind of talk through some of the things that we discussed, instructions that we gave, and kind of the things that they're running scenarios to see what those look like. One of those was Road 19. They've deleted 128 from my perspective. I think that connection has been deleted, but to showing possible other routes with that 19 to go around to the north, and a road that goes around to the south of the existing airport that's there, that will create some connectivity for existing neighborhoods in that Lone Tree area specifically, yep, but also for future neighborhoods that still haven't been built. So I like his thinking. I appreciate what David is doing in trying to find solutions that will solve some of our problems. I think he heard loud and clear that we don't want to negatively impact existing neighborhoods. We want to improve them. And so if there is a way to go around, he's looking at doing that. So there was some great conversation with that. I think you'll have that opportunity to talk with him over the next couple of days and give your input into those as well. So, but I agree. I think this is something we could talk about a long time. We were 2 hours having this discussion with them, but there were some other things to talk about. This next one, I can't wait to talk about the why I didn't want to do this one.
Is that so we're going to move on to the proposed change in the code that would put limits on RV parking, right?
Yeah.
So
man, in general, how did you feel about that?
This is going to be this is a good conversation to bring up here, because obviously I was the one, it was a 4-1 vote. I voted the opposite of the other 4 members. And I think this is going to be an interesting conversation, because it's not that I don't agree, and it's not that the rest of council didn't agree. For me, I think we can do more, and I think we can do better. I mentioned in the meeting that what about the other side of the coin? So that was me. But first of all, I think we got to hit the highlights and say what this was about. So look, the staff brought us a code, mainly brought on because of the resident portal, whether that's how it got brought in or not. But the residents had come to basically our code enforcement, right, and said, hey, this use in our residential area, and it's throughout the city. I'm not going to pick on any one area. There's certain places, but the people are allowing people to park their RVs on their property and even renting them, which is less of the issue whether or not money exchanges hands. But they're allowing storage of RVs that are not owned by the property owner to exist on their land. So to me, it was a resident brought a concern, whether it's traffic or effect of the neighborhood, property values in a residential area. Usually storage of any kind is in a more of a light industrial type zone. So for them to turn an entire lot, maybe it's 1 acre, maybe it's 5 acres, into just RV parking could have an adverse effect on the community. So that's kind of the direction that I was looking at it is, we need to make sure and speak up for the people that aren't doing that bought their property to keep it nice. And look, I also come from a camp. Trust me, I'm a conservative that believes that if it's your land, you should be able to do what you wish on your land for the most part until it affects somebody else. And I think that's where it really drew the line for me is I do want you to be able to use your land, and I want it to be used for the highest and best use, by the way. But I got to be careful in protecting when your use affects the rest of the neighborhood. So to me, it wasn't that I voted against or for. Specifically, I got asked this question by some residents. It was the actual motion that was made that I was the opposite in. I'm going to say that we just decided to deny the entire code amendment. To me, I don't necessarily think it should have been exactly the way it was written, but I think we could have at least said, okay, maybe non-related, for instance. Sitting right next to me is Brett Wright on the dais. He said, well, I have 4 kids, and if all 4 of them want to park a vehicle, an RV on my property, that should be allowed. Yeah, and that's fine. I'd let your kids park there, but I'm talking non-related, just the for rent type situation, if I'm can call it that. But for storage specifically of non-related, we have that in an industrial area. That's Eagle Mountain Storage has RV parking. So for me, that's what that one was about. And I think we missed the mark. I know there was conversation whether we can control this in business licensing, which I do believe is one place we could talk about it. But to do nothing is not addressing the fact that it's still not allowed in our code. So now, to be fair, and I know I've gone long on this, I should let you pipe in, but I also think that our code, and this is where maybe my vote was in error, the no vote on the particular motion of the rest of the people, or the yes vote to deny, I should say, means that we already have the code. So at this point in time, you're not allowed to do RV storage. So those people who are doing it are still out of, I want to be clear, they're out of compliance. We didn't agree with them. They could do whatever they want. The code as it stands right now says you can't do it. So my vote to the opposite of the rest of you guys was to say that we need to address this issue, and whether we're going to allow it or not, or how many. I'm not saying what was before us was right, but we either need to enforce the code that's on the books that says they can't do it. And I think that's where we're at right now, because by denying what was in front of us, the code enforcement's left with what they have. And that says that nobody can do it. So I want that to ring loud and clear to those people who are out there and understand why I voted the other way, because I think we can address it. I think we can find that happy medium to allow it a little bit, but not where it adversely affects the neighbors, and try to control that a little bit so both parties can find an end to this. So that's why I voted different. And you can explain where the rest of the council might have been, because obviously this was one of those times where we didn't see it the same.
Yeah, so I can just speak to where I was on this. So first, the code says you cannot do commercial storage anywhere other than where it's been zoned. And I think with our current code, it's difficult to enforce. That's one of the problems why they brought that code to us, because how do you determine? I mean, the onus that is put on our code enforcement to determine who they belong to and whether it's too many or not enough, because there is a restriction on amount per se, not in our code anyway. Mm-hmm. And I kind of asked the question, how the code was written, where they were saying, if they're not related to you, then, it's a no. And if the planning commission's recommendation was used, then it would be 2. And so my question was, well, who's going to enforce that? Are we going to knock on the door and demand them to present
titles, right?
Title? And so for me, I look at it and I go, I think that we have a solution looking for a problem a little bit on this one. The particular lots that were talked about. So I want to be specific about this one. Up against a commercial use, the adjacent neighbors don't care. They're totally fine with it. So I look at that and go, basically, we have somebody driving by and saying, I don't like it. And if I'm being totally honest, I just don't like that. I mean, I don't like people trying to tell other people who they don't even live by the way, how to take care of their properties. And I mean, that's probably one of my biggest gripes with HOAs, if I'm being totally honest. There is a purpose of HOAs that has gotten so far out of control. It was supposed to be for shared common roofs, the exterior of buildings. So for condos and townhouses, if you have a gated community and have common space, and then it just got out of hand. Like, it has extended so far down the road and created these unchecked, there's not really anybody who's over HOA boards. And so we've created this other government that has no checks and balances to it. And a lot of times the people that are mitigating this are people that are causing harm that doesn't need to be there. So with this particular one, I'm looking at it going, is there a way to mitigate this? I think that if they want to come back and talk about maybe having a home business license that allows for some of these other types of uses, we're in a day and age where people are looking for ways to be able to just make it. Nobody's, sitting high on the hog with renting out their space for boats and right. RVs on their land. And I think it's fair to say too, it's not like they think it looks great, but it's a necessity that they're trying to do. Just like people who are renting out their garages for storage to people, or for people to use gyms. People are trying to get creative with ways that they can bring additional income to be able to make it in the economy that we're in. So for me, I was looking at that going, I don't like the code.
Yeah, and with the home affordability that we already talked about, things like that. But I want to point out one thing that you mentioned, and I think this is where it gets a little bit gray. I don't know that we can set a definition today, but you said our code said commercial uses. And I think that's why it brought up the exchange of money. As soon as you start renting it for money, that's when I think it does at least hint to what I consider leaning over to the commercial. Now, if it's just family and they're just parking there, that's one thing. But As soon as you start advertising for rent, then that is what our code would address. And we could argue
Well,
definitions.
you bring
I
in
guess,
other things like, I mean, if you're exchanging money, there's taxes that should probably be paid and things of
that's
that
why
nature,
business
because that's the law.
licensing is the right place to handle this, right?
Right.
And that's
I
why I
think
said
so too.
I think most of us agreed that we have an issue and we didn't like what was in front of us. I just didn't know that maybe there's still a little work to do on this one, and I felt like we just washed our hands of it. So that's why I voted different. But I think we all can agree that this one probably needs a little more help, and we're going to have to bring it back.
Yeah, I think agreed. I think one of the important things to remember, this is very similar to a lot of conversations that we have. I'm going to bring up one of the misnomers that's on social media, that we're all just in total agreement about everything. And that makes me laugh because they have no idea the debates, the arguing, the disagreement that takes place in trying to determine the right path forward.
And let me tell you, with this camera on, it's probably tuned down that argument, because you and I, we're not afraid to say you're wrong. And with the camera on, we're being a little bit more diplomatic, right?
Right.
But there's no question.
It's true. And look, you can be friends and you can disagree and you can vote differently and you can be frustrated even. I think Jared got a good taste of that a little bit a few months ago with a particular parcel that he saw differently. And I actually was unable to attend that city council meeting, and we disagreed. My perspective and his perspective were different on that one. He was frustrated and I was frustrated, and that's just the nature of trying to find the best path forward for things in how we view the city and protecting and implementing and even trying to bring something forward that will be a benefit without getting too far in the weeds with that. That just happens though. So I'm kind of looking through what we've got here, and I want to jump off this onto the next one so that we're not, kicking this dead horse and not getting a chance to kind of talk about some of the lighter subjects. So you want to jump onto that next section there?
Here's the thing. That's a perfect segue, because the next one was actually you and I that agreed on a topic, and the rest of the council was maybe on the other side. I think a little bit of an X factor with Brett was maybe waffling, but obviously the other council members were in the 180-degree opposite direction of where you and I are. And it's similar to this one where you and I are actually on the same page, but not the others. And we had to move right on. So here it is. It's, oh man, I just lost where I was at. I know what the topic is, but I'm trying to find
parcels of land.
How it was written. Yeah. So it's basically the sale of our open space, right? And that was the next agenda item. I think my thing messed up here. But the question was, do we or do we not allow the sale of some of our open space in our trail system to adjacent homeowners, right? That's
even getting specific into what caused that too. I mean, there was basically encroachment that was taking place where homeowners, not just in this particular instance, and I want to make sure I'm clear on that, there are many homeowners that have just decided to extend their property. They've built sheds and put trampolines. They've got trailers and boats stored there. They even built fences and put in sprinkling systems on property that doesn't belong to them. So it is a problem.
I find it interesting because of this reason. I found it finally. It's the maintenance issue, and the residents have taken over portions of public land where they want the disposal or sale of the property to adjacent landowners. That's how it was written. And anyway, the problem is it's public land, right? And I know I've spoke to a lot of these residents that are in these situations, and every one of them have told me the same thing. In fact, on a completely different topic, today I was meeting with somebody about some animal rights issues. And they say, and I'm going to tell you it's the same thing with the land, but this is unique to me. And I said, it's unique to every single person that's affected. It's unique in their situation, whether or not they should have a building or a trampoline or park their cars on city property or whatever. We have parks. The parking lots are getting used as overflow parking where we don't have enough parking for maybe multifamily units. And so is it okay for them to use public property, whether it's a parking lot or a trail or whatever, and extend their property? And I think you and I obviously said in no situation is that okay. That doesn't mean that we can't find a solution forward. I want to be clear. I've been working
Yeah.
really hard on this topic with some of those landowners, and we are, in my opinion, on a really good path to finding a solution. It's not all developed over there, and I think that we can find an adjacent landowner that might be able to do a land swap, for instance. And you haven't even heard all this, but it's some of the stuff that I'm working on to where they could buy some of that open space and trade us for additional open space that's adjacent. To me, that's totally acceptable because now the people whose land it belongs to are going to be fairly compensated. And I don't mean by money, I mean they're going to remain unscathed. They're still going to have the same amount of land or at least a comparable amount. And the other homeowners will be able to make it right. But that doesn't change the position that I've held the whole time of it's never okay to take over land that you don't own, whether that's other private property and especially public property.
Let's. I want to just jump in on this 1 second because I think one of the things that we have heard, at least from, and not just the specific homeowner that had the application, but other homeowners that say, "Well, I didn't know. I had no idea that this, wasn't on my property." So, Jared and I are both real estate agents. I've got a current practicing license, and I think Jared's is inactive right now.
That's right.
But for a lot of years, he practiced real estate, land development, and understands kind of how this process goes. So it kind of begins with when you're buying any property, whether we're talking about unimproved or one with a house on it of some sort. There's a process that you go through with your title company for them to make sure that land is unencumbered. Now, one of the things I think that happens that is unfortunate is that there's usually a survey that's been done, that's been shown, at least in a recording, to show what the shape of the land is. And when they provide in the purchase process, if you're the buyer, they usually provide you a plat and a layout of the map. It gives you a general idea of what it looks like. That's also available in the county records to kind of show kind of what that drawing looks like, so you can see the shape of it. That should be some precursors to something doesn't look right. Particularly in this instance that we encountered Tuesday, that back piece of the property actually went at an angle; it didn't square off. And had that been presented, or they had looked through that, it would have been pretty obvious that that was the case. And unfortunately, this homeowner, when they bought it, they just made the assumption that because of how it was fenced in and laid out, that was part of their property. And so there's some of those things that they talk about buyer beware type things, but it is something that we need to make sure when we're buying property that all of the land that's displayed on that listing, or even from a private landowner, that belongs to that person, and that you're not buying a much smaller piece of property that you're then going to have legal battles trying to figure out how to pay for the fence that's got to be moved and tear up your sprinkling system and all that kind of thing. So
well, and I think
let's jump over
the other.
Go ahead.
Well, and I was just going to, I don't need to get onto this too much, but one of the other things that you and I definitely aligned on is some of the council, when it talks about, well, what's the value of that land if we did dispose of it, kind of took the approach of not much. We're not using it anyway, almost just give it to them. And I'm not putting any words in anybody's mouth. Don't take me wrong. For me, when we buy land, and we have been buying land as a city, and we've been scrutinized for it with the public. And they should watch that and pay attention and know what it's for and what we're spending that money on. But for us, it was like, no, we pay full price and they pay full price. It's not a matter of just because we're not using it, they should get a better deal. So that was another one of those kind of topics as whether or not we should sell it and then how much. And I think that's where we're still unsettled as a council on this one. I think you and I are on the same page of fair price, and let's make sure that the citizens are taken care of. And
you want to make sure that you get an appraisal done on it, because the stewardship of the land, it belongs to all of the citizens. That piece of land doesn't belong to an individual or even to a corporation per se. It belongs to all of us. So we need to establish what the value of that is. And if they want that, they can pay the fair market value for it, and then it'll be theirs. So, all right. So we have politicked the crap out of this. Let's jump over to some other subjects to talk about. This is one that you're well acquainted for. I'm going to jump past what we had there and have you jump in and kind of talk with us a little bit about the other
This is the
election
hot
that's taking
topics,
place.
right? Hot topics.
Yeah, yeah,
Hot topics and other elections. So obviously, one of the first things is the school district turns. And that's something, as you mentioned, that I was very intimately involved with, all the way from the interlocal agreement, getting it onto the ballot, and then promoting and helping determine about the school district split. So with that, we've got school board candidates. There's 7 new seats. One area, I think it's seat 2, is uncontested. Julie King will win that seat. Some of the other ones have up to 4. I think seat 3 has 4. That's my district. Yours has 3, right? In seat.
that's 3. Yep.
Yep. And then I think there's 4 as well in seat 6 and 3 in seat 7. Is that about right? The other seats are in Saratoga. There's 3 in seat 1. And let's see, 1, 2. I think that's all of them. We covered them. So obviously paying attention to our school board. I'm not going to get into every single candidate. I personally, besides District 3, I know you have been vetting every district because that's so important to us to lend support, even though it's not where we're going to cast a vote. We definitely put a lot of work in, and we want to see the right people come out and create that school district. And I do believe the school district in itself, I'm so excited to see where we can go with this. But it's going to take those 7 board members to collaborate and get this thing off the ground.
Yeah, I think in the contemplation of splitting the school district, I mean, that's been coming for a number of years. That wasn't a new subject, but when we kind of sat down just prior to that January 2024 and said, is this a priority? Is this something that we want to put forth as city councils? Do we want to talk to other city councils and see what their support for this is? Or do we wait for the school district to initiate it? Do we wait for a referendum to take place? All of those discussions took place. And I think the main things that, at least for the cities in the West District, and I would say that the Central District was included in that as well, as what were our risk rewards? What were could we solve some of the problems that we were continually suffering from? And if the answer was no to those things, then is the next logical step to split it. And I think that we went through all those discussions, looked at all the numbers. Is it perfect? It's not. And I think that people need to hear that, look, nobody's saying that there isn't going to be a transition and that there's going to be a different perspective on how we start things off, because you're starting from scratch to some degree with some of these things. And some of these things are carryover. Funding sources, that has been hotly debated. And it depends on who the source is. If we're talking about people who were in the previous district that benefited from us staying together, obviously they're going to have a different perspective to maintain their jobs.
And employees.
And even the employees, but I'm talking more at the district level for the board members. Of course, there's going to be a different perspective based on whether you feel like that you're benefiting from the current system, or you feel like that you're no longer benefiting from it and you're actually suffering from that. So I think it's important for people to remember that it just depends on the perspective. But I think that we made the right decision. I feel very good about getting the interlocal agreement done with Cedar Fort, Fairfield, and Saratoga Springs. I know that Lehigh and Cedar Fort and Alpine, American Fork, and Highland, they're happy with their decision to do that as well. I think that put them in a good position, and I hope that the Orem and Pleasant Grove and Linden and Vineyard, that they will find a path forward that makes sense for their current configuration of students and schools, etc. So that's done. Where are we now? What's next?
Yeah, and on that note too, I've been watching this election as it goes forward, specifically here, but also because I was so involved in those other areas. Even the other areas, the central and the south area on the other side, I think they've kind of, I'll say this, the attitude and what I see is they're saying, we've got to move forward. Let's build the best district we can. And I think all of us can do that. And so that's the key. And I also want to just point out, look, in my personal opinion, I don't have any skin in the game. My kids are graduated. I have nobody in the Alpine School District. But I do want to point out that I also feel like if we were all mutually benefiting and we were taking care of all of the kids, staying together was my preference. But I could see that there were preferential areas, and especially when it comes to numbers in schools and class sizes, et cetera, where there was some discrepancies. And the only way to solve that was to tackle it where the problem existed. And that's where the split became imminent. There is no question that staying together would have been my preference if we could work together. But, as things have it, we move forward. So now we've got an election. Obviously, those school board seats will be narrowed to 2 in August, and then the general election in November. And then immediately, as soon as those votes are tallied and certified, they'll take office. And the first step will be hiring a superintendent, and then hitting the ground, getting a business administrator. Yep. And then just rolling. They're going to start setting up a district, start hiring people. Education services won't start until July 1st is the calendar year, not the calendar year, but the budget year for schools. That'll happen July 1st, 2027. So that's when our district will be fully functional and in charge of operational education services. So that's kind of the steps where we're at right now and kind of moving forward with that. Are you going?
Yeah, I think we're good to go for our final topic here, economic development. And I think for this one, this is definitely an area that I feel like we are both very engaged in doing it a little differently than we've done it in the past. We're not just seeking out retail in Eagle Mountain, because we need to have job opportunities for people to be able to stay here. I mean, one of the ways you're going to fix the road issues is to make it so people don't have to use them all day long, that we give them the ability to be able to stay and work here in the city. So those are some things I think. Let's talk about maybe kind of some of the solutions that we're looking at in the future, and then kind of how we want some of the citizens' help.
Yeah, so I think some of the keys to what you're talking about is, number one, what types of businesses are we looking to? And then number two, what decisions do we have as a city or citizens or even as council that decides on what businesses do, how to get those businesses here and how to promote that? Because it's really not up to us, right? We can do certain things. We can always try and encourage business to come. We can dangle some carrots, if you will. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's private business that we're really trying to attract, and it's up to them to pull the trigger if they're going to come or not, right? So I think you and I agree that obviously we've both tried for years, and maybe not in the same avenues, but a college. We want not just a satellite, but a college campus, and we've heard UVU. I've heard you say in other conversations, specifically Utah State, University of Utah satellite campus, but a campus. I think we would love that. That would bring jobs. It would bring lots of education and a good use for some of our 52 square miles, right?
Yeah, and I think on top of that too, I mean, we're not just talking about 4-year colleges. We've talked a lot about trade schools like Mountainland Technology, things like Bridgerland Technology that exist up north, where that gives people another route for really high-paying jobs, frankly, where kids that are coming out of school, that we can partner with some of these technological trade schools to be able to do their senior year, basically taking their courses for electricians and plumbers and construction, general construction, even construction managers. They can begin some of those things that with trade schools. Some of them are 4-year degrees. You can get a 4-year degree in construction management at a traditional college. But the cosmetology is a great one. People who want to go into web development. So there's a lot of those kinds of things that we have a lot of interest in bringing those types of campuses here that, first of all, our students can go to. Now, some of that stuff's going to be remote. We know that. But also, if they have a place to go to here, it also creates the jobs for the teachers that are there and the administration staff. And to your point, you and I have talked a number of times about a USU type thing with wanting to preserve some of the agricultural uses in this valley. They require a lot of land to show us how to grow food in the kind of climate that we have and the type of soil that we have. We'd love to have those kind of partnerships. But there's some other things I know you've
Yeah.
talked about. What are some other types of businesses that you've talked about that we've discussed?
Well, hospitals, right? I mean, you're seeing the model of what a hospital is even change. And that's not specific to us, but just in general medicine. Uh, Back in the day, a hospital, when we were growing up, used to be based on how many beds it had. And now it's more about their emergency services and what kind of trauma they can take care of, and overnight stays. There's more inpatient or outpatient stuff that takes place. So it's just a totally medicine's it's its own new thing. So you're seeing a lot of these, like in Saratoga, you've got those emergency centers that are popping up, and they're a lot smaller, not so much overnight type hospitals that we traditionally grew up with. So again, I think medical services, which also can get into even manufacturing of medical supplies. You used to be in business doing that kind of stuff. So I think there's a whole gamut of stuff when we talk about how, college campus, hospital campus, just employment centers in general. And really the key is making ourselves available to those options and showing. We really got to get ahead of getting our numbers out there and letting these businesses know. They might not have looked out here, and according to the census, they still look at us as between 40 and 50,000 people. We've got a state code change at the state level that will now allow us to go off, building permits and so forth, that I think is super important and helpful for us, because now we can go to these businesses and say, no, look, we're approaching 75,000, and that's going to change their modeling and make it more appealing for them to come out. So it's up to us to really get our message out and get in front of, GoEO. Jeff Moss just took a position, a local guy here in Saratoga Springs that's now up at the governor's office. And I think that's going to be a huge thing, that to get our numbers and our information and what we have and what we can offer in front of these businesses to say, look, we're ready and open for business, and we want to attract that here to give our citizens both more jobs, more to do, but also more stability and less taxes. If we can get these business partners here, it helps us all the way around to be able to do more and stretch farther with less, right?
Yeah, I like what you were saying about being aware of how businesses are adapting and changing, even like with hospitals, moving to more immediate need, and then any extended care is going to move to like a transitional care or rehab facility for them to do those extended care that hospitals were taking some of those on prior to. So yeah, I think there's some great things for us to look forward to with these podcasts. It's been great chatting with you. Looking forward to hearing back from the residents that listen to this, regardless of where you live. We talked about locals only because that doesn't just mean, the neighborhood or the 300 feet that are around my house or around Jared's house. Locals are our community, our city, adjoining cities, region that we live in, the county, state. There's some pretty specific and unique things to each of those places, and we want to hear those things. So reach out to us on localsonly utah.com, or excuse me, at gmail.com. You can email us. You can reach out to us on our Facebook page, Locals Only. And we would love to get some feedback of things that you'd like us to talk about, answer some questions that you might have. The point of this is to be transparent and open and answer some of those things. So the great assumption that takes place on some of our larger social media pages associated with the people who live here, that we can kind of clarify some of the rumors and the assumptions there and let you know what the truth is. Give you better information to form your opinions. And then, as always, we always want to hear from you, whether that's in our city council meetings or
The
through
great
this new
assumption
avenue.
epidemic.
We're not afraid of that. Oh, that's right. The great assumption epidemic. Yeah. And we'll feed the trolls that live underneath the bridges. So
Yeah, And we're going to have some fun. I hope we get, at some point as we get caught up on some of these hot topics and special items, that we'll bring on some special guests. That we got a lot to catch up on. We don't have enough time in the day to get everything out we want to talk about, but get some guests on here. I love this part. I think what we didn't display as much in this is how goofy we can be sometimes. But even though we're on the other side of it, remember, when it comes to government, bureaucracy is just another word for let's make it as complicated as possible.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on our next episode. Take care.